Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners, issues and updates on this April 18, 2023. Administrator Gary Schmidt, what's up first?
Thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner Martha Schrader is out of the office today. Commissioner Ben West will be here shortly. Chair, would you please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
This is request for consent agenda for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Item 1, approval of an amendment adding funding to a subrecipient grant agreement from Clackamas County for ongoing delivery of senior services at the Milwaukee Center. The agreement value is $14,355. The total grant value is increased to $903,992 for 2 years. Funding is through state and federal grant funds. No county general funds are involved. Mike Bork from the Parks District, go ahead.
Thank you, Gary, and good morning, directors. Really, I'm here just in case you had any questions. This is just a third amendment providing some additional funding for our senior services at the Milwaukee Community Center. Later on, there's an attending one from H3S to make everything all work. So if you have any questions, otherwise that's my report.
Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, Mr. Bork, is most of this for food or transportation?
It's a mix of food, transportation, and some of the educational opportunities and services, other services out of the center. So it's really a mix of a lot of it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Paul.
So, Mike, is it more just costing and budget preparation that you're just trying to align and move numbers around to make things pencil more equitably? Or is it actually a new expense?
This is really just an inflationary amendment, is my understanding. So we just have additional expenses from the last time we have done, and my understanding is those not new services, just higher cost of doing the same level of services.
Okay. Could you get clarity on that for us?
Yeah.
Just circle back, because the last time we were here, it turned out the majority of that ask for that budgetary adjustment was actually an assignment of an FTE.
Right. Yeah, this is a different
expense.
program.
Right,
Yeah.
right, okay. Yeah, that's all I need, is just clarity on that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, would you please convene as the Water Environment Services Board?
I will recess as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and convene as a Water Environment Services.
This is request for consent agenda for Water Environment Services. Item 1, approval of a grant application to Metro's Nature in Neighborhoods Capital Grant Program for construction of the Three Creeks Water Quality Project. Grant value is $600,000. Funding is through Metro. No county general funds are involved. Ron Warenga from WES, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. I am Ron Warenga with Water Environment Services. Before you today, we have a request to submit a grant application to Metro, the Nature in the Neighborhoods Capital Grant Program, for funding to support our Three Creeks project, which we've talked to you about in the past, and several of you have visited the site. The grant would support our planned restoration work, floodplain and stream restoration work on the site to provide better floodplain function, reduce downstream flooding, improve water quality, improve habitat for threatened salmon and steelhead. We're asking for $600,000 to do additional restoration work. We think that'll really put us in about the right spot on the cost-benefit curve for the work that we can do on the site. There's matching requirements for the grant program, which are already covered by our programmed investment in the site. So we won't need to spend additional money on the grant. It's money that we're on the grant match. It's money we're already planning to spend. We submitted a pre-application proposal to Metro just to assure that our project was eligible and would be competitive in the grant program process, and we were invited to submit a full application, and so now we're asking for your approval to submit that application.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, this $600,000 combined with the $3 million of WES dollars that you've committed to this project, is that going to complete this project?
Yes, it will. Yes, Commissioner, it'll complete the scope of work that we're planning to design right now. That'll be the limit of construction.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner West?
I'm not that familiar with this area of the county. Is this like a park area that's open to the public actually, or is this one of the metro parks that nobody gets access to?
Good question, Commissioner. The property is an almost 90-acre natural area that's mainly owned by Water Environment Services, by our service district. It is adjacent to Clackamas Community College, and North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District has property near there, but it's a undeveloped natural area. It does have a flood control structure on the site that was built in the late 90s, early 2000s, so there's a dam on the site that backs water up. It is open to the public. The public does use the site. There is no formal public access to the site, though, recreation amenities and whatnot. That is part of our planning process for this project, is to identify opportunities to formalize public access and bring folks to the site. We're starting with the restoration work, and then we'll build on top of that later.
Is this part of that plan with the restoration work before we open it up potentially to the public in the future?
Yes, this is part of the restoration work that'll sort of set the stage for future improvements.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing no objections.
All right, Chair, would you please convene as the Enhanced Law Enforcement District?
I will recess as the Water Environment Services and convene as the Enhanced Law Enforcement District.
This is a request for an advisory board appointment on behalf of the Enhanced Law Enforcement District. Tony, go ahead.
The Enhanced Law Enforcement District Advisory Board, staffed by Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, currently has 4 openings on the commission due to term expirations and resignations.
Sorry.
Through a recruitment process, 4 applications were received and 4 are recommended for appointment. 2 are new, 2 are currently on the board. Recommendations are James Rhodes to a 2nd term, Bob Zimmer to a 3rd term, Caroline Parker to a 1st term, Carl Grossman to a 1st term.
I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, I move to approve the roster.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has moved we approve the Enhanced Law Enforcement District Board of James Rhodes, Bob Zimmer, Caroline Parker, and Carl Grossman. Commissioner Schull has seconded the motion. Further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Apologies. Director Shull?
Aye.
Director Savas?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
Chair, would you please convene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as the Enhanced Law Enforcement District and convene as a Board of County Commissioners.
We will meet as the Board of County Commissioners for the rest of this meeting. Next is request for consent agenda for the regular county agenda. First up, elected officials and the Assessor's Office. Item 1, approval of a resolution with the State of Oregon for the Assessor's CAFFA grant application for fiscal year 2023-2024. Total value is approximately $1.25 million of revenue for the Assessor's Office for July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024. Funding is through the State of Oregon. No county general funds are involved. Bronson Urweda, County Assessor, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith, County Commissioners. Thank you for your time today to move this resolution to Thursday's consent agenda for approval, which is required as part of our annual application to the Oregon Department of Revenue for the CAFA grant. The annual CAFA grant helps Oregon counties cover a small portion of costs for the state-mandated function of assessment and taxation. Funding for the grant comes from portions of document recording fees and a percentage of the interest collected on delinquent property taxes. These funds are forwarded to the Oregon Department of Revenue, which then redistributes the funds to counties statewide. For fiscal year 2024, the grant is forecasted to provide approximately 12% of the revenue to fund the assessor's office, or $2.25 million. I respectfully recommend the board approve to move this resolution to Thursday's consent agenda for final approval so the grant application can be submitted to the state by the due date of May 1st. Are there any questions? And I said 2.25, it's 1.25.
What was that last remark?
I said 2.25 million, it's 1.25 million.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure that was clear. I didn't hear it all the way. Questions or comments? Hearing no objections. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Bronson. Next, also elected officials, this is the Sheriff's Office. Item 2, approval of an amendment increasing funding of a subrecipient agreement with Oregon Health and Science University for implementing system-level diversion strategies. The amendment value is $12,095. Grant value is increased to $292,058 for 3 years. Funding is through the Comprehensive Opioid Abuse Site-Based Program grant through the United States Department of Justice. No county general funds are involved. Captain Malcolm McDonald from the Sheriff's Office, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. Malcolm McDonald from the Sheriff's Office. This is an amendment to correct an oversight that OHSU had in the previous amendment. They failed to include their first-year costs, which was an amount of $12,095. So it's just to correct their error.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, not per se on this one, but had a great meeting with our finance staff and finance staff with the sheriff's office last week, and I just want to point this out based on what you just mentioned, that it's really, really important on these grant monies that these purposes, that they're fully expensed out at the actual cost, right? Overhead, I mean, allocated, everything should be rolled into that, so that these programs aren't really being subsidized with other dollars. So I think that was something that I kind of gleaned. It sounds like maybe they indeed are doing that now, and I just don't know. Maybe I'm looking at Gary to know what opportunities we have, if there's any look back, how far back can we make sure that if something was missed out of one of these special funds, restricted funds, so to speak, that it was not truly expensed, that how far back can we go in situations like this? Obviously, we can a little bit, but
We can go throughout the current, well, actually, Elizabeth can correct me if I'm wrong, the current fiscal year until we close the books for the county's audit, which usually is around August or September after the fiscal year closes. As long as we catch it before the books are closed, we can go back and do, it's called journal entries to correct the expenditure. So we have basically just after the fiscal year ends to make the correction.
yeah, I think it's really a good exercise to make sure, again, that we're catching it, because that window is so short that if we don't fully expense those activities out under the restricted funds, that they're being subsidized by other scarce dollars. So,
Yes,
Is the request clear, Gary?
that is to me, yes.
Okay, any further comments from the board? Are we all in agreement with that? We are in agreement with that. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Next, under Finance Department, item 1, adoption of a board order authorizing a purchase order to purchase 3 750-kilowatt generators and associated components through a cooperative contract with Cummings Incorporated. Purchase order value is $916,624.45. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. Elizabeth Comfort and Jeff Jorgensen from the Finance and Facilities. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners and Administrator Schmidt. With me, I have Jeff Jorgensen, our Facilities Director, to explain about our latest upgrade to our central utilities plant with this resolution before you.
Good morning. Yes, several weeks ago, we came before you to go ahead and get authorization to buy some of the equipment. So this is for 3 generators that'll provide emergency power in case we lose power to the Red Soils campus. Right now, we don't have emergency power over the CUP, so the central utility plant. This will provide it also to the PSB, the DSB, but at the courthouse. It's being installed because of the courthouse, and it's just going to have the benefit of providing hot and cold water, any kind of power generation requirements in case of an emergency.
And they're located here and down at the courthouse area.
There's actually 3 that are part of the project for the courthouse, and there are 3 over at the central utility plant. These are the 3 for the central utility plant.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Scholl?
So when these 3 new generators are installed, they'll provide power for the PSB, the DSB,
For
and what else?
the central utility plant operations, the hot and cold water, it doesn't provide for the building itself or the DSB or the courthouse. So the courthouse has the 3 generators over there that provide emergency power for the courthouse. We have the generator here that provides this one. There's one over at the DSB.
Okay.
But it's only those systems that are on those emergency generators. This is the generators that are actually providing it for 2 cooling towers, 2 chillers, and 6 boilers, all the pumps and motors over there.
Okay, good, thank you.
Welcome.
Commissioner Savas?
just so I'm clear, so there's not 3 backup generators now?
Correct.
Okay, so we're adding 3 on top of what we already have.
Well, we have no generators for the utility plant
For-
right
I
now at
understand
all.
that. Yeah, I
So
understand
it's-
the distinction,
It's
but-
the initial installation for it to get that power.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you're doing this. I remember the ice storm.
Yes, yes, this will help immensely. As we get more buildings on the central utility plant, it's really helping to go ahead and provide that power.
That's right. Yes, we were without and we didn't have backup. Yes, Commissioner Shaw.
The 916,000, does that include the wiring to wire them in line?
No, the installation costs are above that, just like we came a couple of weeks ago with the other equipment. That's the equipment only. This is the generators.
Okay.
We also have the project to go ahead and install it, and the majority of that will be done by our actually electricians.
Okay,
We had
good.
wired all the generators over at CCOM, so we'll be installing all that also.
Oh, good, thank you.
Our in-house?
Yeah, we will actually probably perform some outside contracted, but most of it is our electricians in-house.
Okay.
Great. Love it. Thank you. Seeing no objections,
Thank you.
Next, Juvenile Department, item 1, approval to apply for a re-engagement opportunity grant from the Oregon Department of Education for a mentoring program. Grant value is $250,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved. Christina McMahon from Juvenile Department, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Christina McMahon, Clackamas County Juvenile Department Director. I am going to present 5 in a row, and I know Gary will announce each of them, but they're all under the same funding opportunity, and they're through the Oregon Department of Education Youth Development Division. And I just want to emphasize there is no match from the county required for these, and it is anticipated they will be available each biennium, but we know that nothing's a sure thing. Anyway, so the first one is a request to apply for the grant under the Youth Reengagement Opportunity Grant to fund a mentoring program. And we would do, if we were awarded this, we would use it to contract with a provider who would be working with high-risk juvenile justice-involved kids who are struggling with school, education. A lack of connection and academic failure is one of the biggest risk factors for continuing in negative juvenile justice or criminal justice involvement. So we would ask your permission to be able to apply for this particular grant.
questions or comments? Seeing no objection.
Item 2, approval to apply for a Youth Community Investment Youth Solutions Grant from the Oregon Department of Education for a restorative community service program. Grant value is $120,000 for 2 years. Funding through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved.
Right. This particular program would provide an opportunity, if we were awarded this, to contract with a nonprofit who would work with, we would prioritize younger kids who don't have the ability to earn restitution to go out and work in their home communities. So if they live in Molalla, they would be working with a nonprofit in their hometowns. So this is, we would call it the Restorative Community Service Program. And once again, what I said before would be hopefully renewable every biennium. So we would ask your permission to apply for this grant as well.
Commissioner Shaw?
Okay, for this restorative community service program, who develops and approves the program?
We would
You-
be developing the
Develop it?
program, yes.
Okay. All right, good.
And we would contract with somebody that could meet our program requirements.
Okay, so you write the program, they agree to initiate or carry out the
Right,
details.
instead of us hiring staff to operate the program, we're really looking at opportunities where we could receive grants that we could use to contract to provide the services. In the event that those funds go away, we would just not renew contracts versus having to lay off county employees.
And this is all part of the restorative justice philosophy that your department uses when dealing with youths who would seem to need to change a course of action that they have engaged in, correct?
Yes, it
And
is.
it's worked well. It's worked very well.
Yes, we've actually had kids who end up volunteering in the past. We've had kids who end up continuing to volunteer in their communities after they participate in some of these required programs. So yes, it's really repaying, trying to make up for the harm they've caused in their communities.
Second chances are very good. Thank you for doing that. Commissioner West.
Well, that answers my first question. I was asking if it was under that same restorative justice philosophy and umbrella. When I met with you, I don't know, it seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't, like a month or two ago, and got a good handle on what you guys do. I was really impressed with some of the philosophical framework that informs your actions, so thank you for that work. My question is this kind of a new and innovative approach? Is this unique, this type of program, to try to keep people within their own communities and bring that restorative work back to where they maybe not necessarily offended, but maybe where they live? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I think in Oregon, there are pockets where different counties try to do this in different ways, but it can be a challenge because of the funding portion of it. So a lot of times you will see young people out on the side of the road picking up trash in, you've seen that on I-5, I'm sure, which has its place. We're not knocking that, but this is really an opportunity that doesn't exist very often because of the younger kids who you really don't want to have out on the side of I-5 or I-205, right?
So would they go to like a soup kitchen or a food shelter, or somewhere with a food bank or a shelter and participate in some volunteer activity?
Yes, that's exactly. We've had kids in working in thrift stores, food pantries. There was a Molalla watershed. This is before the pandemic. We used to have arrangements with some of these nonprofits that would allow our kids to work in them.
The watershed restoration projects were great because they got to go outside in the woods along the river, and they would put in trails. That's when Crawford was here, and that was a big program, and really get kids back to nature. And then at the end of their project, they had this, they had an accomplishment,
That's cool, yeah.
and it was really cool.
Right, like in senior centers, I mean, there's a lot of different, so yes, it would be doing those types of projects that you've already listed.
I think it's good for everybody to do those things.
Yeah, me
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you very much. See no objections.
Item 3, approval to apply for a Youth Community Investment Youth Promise Grant from the Oregon Department of Education for a school-based screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment services program. Grant value is $220,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, I've talked with several of you about this in the past. This school-based SBIRT is something that we're currently doing with the Gladstone School District, and we'd like to be able to continue this pilot because so far the indicators are very positive. It is our way to try to get a little more upstream with some of the challenges that we're facing from the aftermath of the pandemic in terms of the impact on young people's mental health, and also Measure 110. We're seeing an increase in young people experimenting and using serious drugs. I mean, not that all drugs aren't serious, but you know what I'm saying. So this would be an opportunity to continue the pilot that we started this year in Gladstone School District.
I think this is great. I just wish it was in all schools, right? I mean, yeah, but thank you for that. Any other comments?
It's fantastic.
Yeah, see no objections.
Item 4, approval to apply for a Youth Community Investment Youth Solutions Grant from the Oregon Department of Education for a Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center Prevention Program. Grant value is $120,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved.
Right, last but not least, this would be used in our very own Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center, which is located as part of a wing of our building. And what we often see is, obviously, law enforcement brings us young people who've committed criminal offenses, but they also, a little bit less known, also bring us young people that haven't committed criminal offenses. They're there for status offenses, such as running away, violating curfew, being minor in possession of alcohol, being in possession of marijuana. Those kids are not able, under Oregon law, to be put on probation or even under a formal accountability agreement with our department. So while we become aware of challenges and struggles that youth and their family may be having, we don't have the resources to be able to really work with those families. So what we're looking at doing is contracting with a provider that we would be able to refer those young people to and their families to get help and family navigation services to get them referred to the right level of programming that they need. This is not something we've been able to do, so this would be a new program that we'd be adding, tagging on to our existing program as an enhancement. So we would ask that you approve this application as well.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, go forth and be successful.
Well, thanks, and I think I miscounted. It wasn't last but not least. Sorry, Gary.
Okay. Item 5, approval to apply for a Future Ready Youth Grant from the Oregon Department of Education for a Work Crew Community Service Program. Grant value is $250,000 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved.
Right. This is the newest funding stream out of all of these, and it is really designed to enhance and create employability skills in young people that are involved with, who have different challenges, but juvenile justice involvement is one of the listed opportunities. So if we were to get this grant, we would be working with a provider in the community, contracting with them to help to run these work crew opportunities where they could learn skills. So for example, it could be doing activities like what we were talking about with the watershed program, or it might be doing landscaping. It depends on who we end up getting as a contracted provider. So if this is awarded, we will use it with the older youth that we want to make sure are getting those employment skills so that they can successfully transition into adulthood, and also have an opportunity, if they owe restitution, to be able to pay that back. So we'd ask that you'd approve this application.
Mr. Scholl?
Yeah, on this one, can you give us an example or two of what kind of organization, what kind of provider are we talking about? Can you give us some names of some potential providers that would do this kind of work?
Well, there are several different organizations in the county, so I don't want to get ahead of myself speaking, but the type of work that they do is, for example, they might currently be getting grants through the Bureau of Land Management or the Forest, the Office of Forestry, the federal agency, where they're going out and doing things on federal lands with crews of young people. I know of some that have done work with WES, doing things related to, they do a grant program. Landscaping is one, noxious weeds. There's a whole kind of variety of things that they might be able to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing no objections? Thank you very much for bringing that forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Next, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval of an amendment to a supplemental project agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation for the Jennings Avenue, Oregon 99E to Oatfield Road project. Total amendment is $1,258,889.47 for a total project estimate of $6,183,390.81. Funding is through Federal Surface Transportation Program, Surface Transportation Block Grant Funds, and county road funds. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Transportation and Development, go ahead.
Chair Smith, Commissioners, Gary, excellent introduction. Not sure I'm really going to add to that. I guess I want to clarify, because this is a project that's near and dear to Commissioner Savas and his community. This is essentially securing additional monies, okay, outside monies to come in to pay for this project. That's what this amendment is for. I will tell you, though, we bid the project as identified in the staff report, and the bids came in higher than expected. And so while this gets additional money, that doesn't mean that we're going to construction immediately. It means that we are having discussions around value engineering some areas to it, some redesign, also having some discussion about the necessity for DBE components as a part of this project. It was because there's federal money associated with it. There were some requirements that we had some disadvantaged business enterprise components to it as well. But we're talking about all those things. We're looking to get the project back out, get it bid, and get it constructed, and we're still committed to the project. But I know Commissioner Savas and we've had a lot of discussions around this. I'm trying to head off all those questions that you might have. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Dan, when you say you went back and did value engineering, which is a term saying, where can we cut back and make it less expensive? The entities that bid this, were they helpful in helping you do the value engineering?
When we have bids that come in higher than expected, so two things were at play here. One, the number of bidders that we had. We only had 2 bidders in this particular project.
Okay.
And then secondly, we do engage in a discussion with them to try to glean an understanding of why they bid certain aspects of the project in a certain way, and also have discussions with them about if we were to change these aspects, how would
Right.
that influence the bidding environment and the
Good.
bids that may be submitted? So yes, we are engaged in those discussions.
Good, wonderful. Any questions or comments? Yes, Paul?
Yeah, just to mention just how long this has been going on. So the awards for these dollars were made, what, 7 years ago, 8 years ago? Then Mayor Lori DeReamer and I were the co-chairs of C4 when we awarded, so to speak, or made our recommendation to JPAC Metro for these dollars. And part of that package was improvements on Malal Avenue in Oregon City, which that project looks like it's complete now. And the other project was on 129th, 122nd, up in Happy Valley, a real dangerous area, were awarded, and some others. This one's the only one that's been languishing out of that award. So it was a federal award originally with some dollars that are being augmented here locally. So, yeah, it was near and dear to the community at the time who advocated for that, along with all the other ones. It was a competitive process. So thank you for the work, and hopefully we can start this within 10 years, 8 years.
We're committed to it. That's
Not-
I don't
not
want to commit
another 8 or
anything,
9,
not
10
another
years,
9 or 10 years.
But from the original,
Yes.
from the
Yes.
original award, if you want to call it that.
Yep. We are hopeful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any objection to going forward? Seeing none?
Item 2, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Oregon City to transfer a portion of South Caulfield Road. The agreement value is $94,845, funding through the Community Road Fund. No county general funds are involved.
For those of you who might not know this, there are county roads that are located within cities. And so one of the priorities that was established with the Community Road Fund was a discussion around how we transfer those roads, get them into city jurisdictions. Cities want control of them. They wanted to design those to city standards, which we do not do. We design roads to county standards. Essentially, this is a partnership with the cities, discussions that we have with the cities about certain transfers of certain roads. This is a partnership with the City of Oregon City to do such a transfer as contemplated. Essentially, this removes all long-term liability for additional maintenance of this section of roadway from Clackamas County and transfers it to the city. It's customary, there are dollars associated with this, and those dollars are primarily established through urban growth management agreements and other documents that we have, and it basically relates to the condition of the road. And basically, the dollar amount is established generally on the cost to do a 2-inch overlay on the road to make it new. So instead of having us go out there and do that, we pay them the money, they take the road, and we're good to go. So.
Is there a guarantee if you give the jurisdictions the money that they're going to put it on the road and not use it for other purposes?
I don't know that. I don't know
So
that.
that's why I have an issue. We transfer these roads, we give them a lot of money, whoever this may involve, and yet, if it's not written in that this money will pave a 2-inch overlay on this particular section of road, they put it in their coffers and it goes. And the same thing happens with SDCs that are charged by certain city jurisdictions, yet they're county roads. And you and I have had this discussion. So this is my concern. Unless the contract says you shall use this money for the 2-inch overlay on this road, I don't want to approve it.
Okay.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, I understand the chair's point. It's always beneficial for us to get that county road off our books as a liability and transfer. But your point about making sure those follow through on, is there any, Dan, are you aware of any case in which it's not? I want to just do a shout out to Oregon City for participating in the original intent with this program. Part of this was rolled in with the VRF increase. Some cities have stepped up and honored that agreement and taken advantage of it as anticipated to reduce our liability in our road department. Others have not. I have a little bit of heartburn with those who have not, more so than those like Oregon City who has. So I don't want to necessarily flag something that isn't a challenge, but I'm not aware of any, unless you are, of any agreement where the city didn't follow through in that transfer doing the paving. So Sheriff's Point's a good one, but is there a
Yeah.
case where it didn't happen?
Off the top of my head, I can't. Do we track all those after the transfer is done? I can't affirm that either. So I'd have to go back. I don't have the entire IGA here.
We have a few more questions, Dan.
Yeah,
From the commissioners, so Commissioner Scholl?
Yeah, it seems to me if we're going to require some sort of guarantee from the city that they're going to do that 2-inch overlay, we would also ask about a time frame for it. So I think maybe we might be getting into a bigger bag of worms than we want to.
There are pros and cons to this discussion. I mean, the discussion is more around the fact, is twofold. One, it's around, the objective is to transfer the road, fundamentally, because then we defray the long-term maintenance costs associated with that road. The easiest path forward for the county in doing that is essentially cost estimating those costs for the 2-inch overlay and paying those dollars. We don't have additional overhead costs, we're not doing the work, et cetera.
Dan, how much are we giving them for this road?
$94,845.
Okay, Mark, do you have any more questions? Commissioner West, you're up.
So the standards between the cities and the county on our roads are different?
They are.
Okay, and so do the municipalities tend to have maybe higher standards than maybe the county would, or just different type of roadways? Because why wouldn't we just make sure it's in good condition before we pass it on to them and they pay us?
So that's a great question. They have different standards. They may have different objectives. They may have adopted different design standards for the road. So basically, our discussion with the cities is the fact that we have the county standard. We have 1,400 miles of roadway. That county, to build consistency and efficiency in the way we maintain our roads, we are sticking to that standard. If you want to do something else above and beyond that, then you can accept the road and take the responsibility for it. And I guess, and that brings up a good point, because in a lot of these circumstances, and I'm not sure that it's applicable to this one, but in some of these circumstances, we don't pay them the amount to get it to their standard. We pay them the amount to get it to our standard. And so they may choose to use those monies, and I know this has happened in some cases, where they have used these monies and then pooled it with additional monies to redo the entirety of the road to the city standard as well. And so it depends on how the city wishes to advance that discussion, because they may have, for example, wider sidewalk desires that they've adopted through a street cross-section through their comp plan that we may not have required as a city standard. And so instead of having us go out there, fix it to our standard, and then to conveying it over to the city and having them upgrade it, that's not an efficient use of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for answering that.
So we're going to pull this until I get an answer to my question. You can bring it back next week.
Okay.
Thank you. Up next?
All right, item 3, approval of the 2023 tax foreclosed property disposition declaration of surplus. No fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved.
We talked about this last week. Essentially, this is the surplus property auction that we discussed. Essentially, this is basically identifying these properties as surplus. It's a formal action from the board. What we had discussed with you last week was to inform you of the list. Here's the list. Do you have any comments, questions, or concerns about it? This is the formal action to define them as surplus to advance the auction.
Questions or comments, commissioners? See no objections.
Item 4, approval of a contract with Coral Construction Company for Dryland Road Guardrail Improvement Project. Total contract value is $377,777. Funding through the county road fund. No county general funds are involved.
Basically, in this section of Dryland, there's a slight horizontal reverse curve here, which creates an issue with at high speeds with vehicles leaving the roadway, okay? And so essentially our intent, there have been some crashes there. There have been some serious crashes there. And our intent is to put this guardrail up, and that guardrail will essentially won't prevent the crashes because they're high-speed crashes, but it will minimize the impact and will minimize and will work to keep those vehicles on the road and create a safer environment for the traveling public.
And there have been reported crashes in this area.
Yes, there have.
And the guardrail's costing us $372,000?
Yes.
Well, maybe it will save lives.
Yes, it will.
Questions or comments?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't see the length of the guardrail requirement here. How much is that 377 buying this?
I can get that to you, the length of the entire roadway, or the guardrail list distance, yeah.
Yeah, because that must be a big curve there.
Yes, they are not, if you think about the installation of a guardrail, the cost associated with it, although all you see is that simple rail that's up there, there is more to it. You know, there's driving the piles, there's the gravel associated with the placement, et cetera. But I can get that linear distance for you.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate that.
Commissioner West?
Yeah, it looks like that there were 5 fatalities and 1 serious injury.
Yep.
So that's a serious issue. And the guardrails along this area will prevent future vehicles from leaving the roadway. That's good. And will reduce the severity of future lane departure crashes. I think it's a necessary infrastructure upgrade to save lives. Thank you for bringing this to us.
Thank you. Hearing no objections.
Item 5, approval of a contract with Capital Asset and Pavement Services for inspection and evaluation of Clackamas County roads. Total contract value is $272,316. Funding through the county road fund. No county general funds are involved.
The single biggest asset that you manage is the transportation system of Clackamas County. And essentially, this is an ability to go out and hire a consultant to assess our infrastructure system, evaluate it, and get a condition and status report of the roadway system within Clackamas County. We basically take this information and bring this information into our pavement management system that we manage and control and monitor that asset as a whole. That information then helps us develop future programs and plans where we're going to invest our money and get the greatest need and or greatest return on that investment.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 6, approval of a contract with Consor North America for the Johnson Creek Boulevard 79th to ECM Improvement Project. Total contract value is $453,006. Funding is through county road funds. No county general funds are involved.
ECM, what's ECM? End of county maintenance. So essentially there is a line there that has been defined by the way the road is accepted, but basically this is an improvement. The project that will provide improved accessibility for pedestrians and will preserve the roadway through pavement rehabilitation. The project will require right-of-way, ADA improvements and curb ramps, compliance with ADA standards. As all of you know, we've talked about this sometime in the past. Currently, if we are to touch a road, grind a road, anything, we have to and if it's in the urban area, we have to update and upgrade all the ADA components associated with that road. This essentially is not only doing the rehabilitation to the road, but upgrading those adjacent ADA improvements near that section of roadway. Essentially, I can tell you the project was advertised in accordance with ORS and LCRB rules on September 13th of 2022. Bids were opened October 12th. The county received 3 bidders. After review of the proposals, contracting with Consor North America was determined to be the best interest of the county.
Regarding the ADA upgrades, is that a federal mandate?
Yes.
And is fairly new. How much have we spent of our county road fund on federal mandates for ADA compliance?
So specifically of road fund, I'd have to get back to you on that because we leverage all these sources of funding to the greatest extent feasible. So the road fund as a whole, why
don't you get that number to me on how much the road fund is and then the total cost with all leveraged funds?
Okay.
Because this is an unfunded mandate from the federal government, is that correct?
I believe it would be the case.
Yes, an unfunded mandate, and I heard a figure once of $24 million that the county has spent on ADA ramps at intersections, but I'm not sure, I could be wrong, so you can let me know that. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, we talk about this often when I wear my ODOT Region 1 hat. We talk about that expense, and it's not really so much, discussion is not about it being a federal mandate or a state mandate. It's more of a court case ruling that holds us all accountable. So it applies to cities, counties, state, anyone who operates a roadway, so to bring it up to standards, or else we're subjected to, without complying with the timetable, we're subject to lawsuits. So it's not really I would call it a mandate like we typically talk about.
It's a American Disabilities Act, and there was a legal case regarding that. And basically, we are, from that case, it was determined that there are appropriate steps that we need to take with any road that we touch. And that essentially is to update all those ADA components associated with it.
And I think the public needs to know that. That's why. Questions? Any objections? Seeing none.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of an amendment increasing funding and duration of a personal services contract with MV Public Transportation for the Mount Hood Express Daily Operations Service. The amendment value is $1,225,600 for 1.3 years. The total agreement value is increased to $3,379,703.08 for 4 years. Funding is through the Federal Transit Administration, Federal Highway Administration, and statewide transportation improvement funds. No county general funds are involved. Denise Swanson, Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Denise Swanson, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services. And as Gary said through that long introduction, this is for our Mount Hood Express. And it's basically a change in the contract for upgrading with our partnership with Sandy's Transit Services. So we have negotiated new rates and extend the duration of the contract through 2023. And we expect that this will provide 71,000 rides.
Wow. Yeehaw. Questions, comments? Commissioner Schull.
You expect it's going to provide 71,000 future rides. What's the current ridership?
Ooh, I'm going to have to give you, I'll get back to you on that.
Is it really active? Yeah, I see it going up and through Sandy all the time. I just was curious as to, because this is a big investment. It's getting bigger now. And, it's difficult to get bus service in rural areas without the expenses going through the roof. So is the ridership penciling out?
Good morning, Teresa Christofferson. I'm with the Social Services Division, Project Manager for the Mount Hood Express. Yes, ridership continues to be very strong. We exceeded 68,000 rides last year, and we're continuing on an upward trajectory on that service. It's very well used, both locally and by visitors to the Mount Hood area.
Okay, good. That's good news. Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing
Yeah,
none-
I would
Yeah?
just, mine's more of a comment. If I would just add that we hear, what Teresa just shared with you, we hear quite often. So it's, there are some lines in the region that perform really, really well. This is one of them, so.
See no objections, thank you.
Item 2, approval of a federal subrecipient grant agreement with Clackamas Women's Services for an emergency food and shelter program. The agreement value is $60,525 for 10 months. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. No county general funds are involved.
So this and the next subrecipient agreements are emergency food and shelter program funding, and it's really dedicated to augmenting and expanding emergency shelter operations. So meant to pay for the costs of providing emergency shelter services to adults and families who need case management activities to stabilize their shelter needs and learn the skills they need to live on their own. And so this is with Clackamas Women's Services, and it will provide approximately 4,842 bed nights at their confidential location for survivors of domestic violence.
Wow. Commissioner Schull.
Yeah, I just want to say that's a very economical program, and it's another example of what Clackamas County is doing to provide shelter for the needy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 3, approval of a federal subrecipient grant agreement with Northwest Housing Alternatives for an emergency food and shelter program. Agreement value is $60,525 for 10 months. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. No county general funds are involved.
So this is exactly the same as the last agreement, but with Northwest Housing Alternatives.
Questions, comments? Yep.
Are the room nights the same amount?
Approximately, yes. Yep.
I'm sure they have different overhead costs, so.
Yes, the amount of the grant moving forward is the same amount of dollars, so that's why we have about the approximate number.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no objections.
Item 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are all similar, so I'll group them together. They are all approval of amendments to agreements with local nonprofits for services to older adults. They are all funded through the Older Americans Act and state transportation funds for older and disabled residents. No county general funds are involved. Specifically, item 4 is for Foothills Community Church on behalf of the Malala Adult Community Center. The amendment value is $15,790 for 1 year. Total agreement value is increased to $365,876 for 2 years. Item 5 is for the Canby Adult Center. Amendment value is $17,710 for 1 year. The agreement value is increased to $572,450 for 2 years. Item 6 is for the City of Oregon City on behalf of the Pioneer Community Center. The amendment value is $9,500 for 1 year. A total agreement value increased to $372,318 for 2 years. Item 7 is for Hoodland Senior Center. Amendment value is $20,455 for 1 year. The total agreement value increased to $204,803 for 2 years. Item 8 is for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District on behalf of the Milwaukee Center. The amendment value is $14,355 for 1 year. Total agreement value is increased to $903,992 for 2 years. Again, this is item 4 through 8. All are funded by the Federal Older Americans Act, state transportation funds. No county general funds are involved.
Thank you, Gary. The thing I would say about this one, Commissioners, is there are some great stories in the staff reports as well as data for you to review about how these services have helped seniors in Clackamas County. And just doing some quick math here, we're talking about over 100,000 Meals on Wheels meals to these different senior centers, as well as transportation, helping people who are lonely, getting people connected to other services, particularly energy assistance. So it's just a plethora of good things happening with these funds.
Commissioner Scholl?
Are you seeing an increase in the need of our senior citizens of this county for these programs?
We certainly were seeing an increase, particularly due to COVID. We have, as you probably see in the elevator, a line that you can call for lonely seniors. So there is definitely an increase and an uptick in services at all the senior centers.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the effects of inflation on limited retirement incomes for our older people. So I would expect the numbers in these services would be going up all the time.
Yeah, and you'll see, I think in 2 of the different senior centers, the stories that we got from those folks was about energy assistance specifically, which is provided through our social services department.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Seeing no objections.
Item 9, approval of an amendment adjusting fiscal year 2023 funding and updating program language to a revenue intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority for the financing of public health services. The amendment value is $223,252 for 1 year. Total agreement value is increased to $16,638,964.52 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
So Commissioners, this one and the next one are with our agreement with Oregon Health Authority, and they're both amendments. So this one is Amendment 12, the next one is Amendment 13. And they are about making award adjustments, basically. And this is for Clackamas County Public Health, which provides our HIV prevention services, tobacco prevention, WIC, and school-based health centers.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 10, approval of an amendment adjusting fiscal year 2023 funding and updating program language to a revenue intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Health Authority for the financing of public health services. The amendment value is $440,505.62 for 1 year. The total agreement value is increased to $17,079,470.14 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
So an additional $440,000 for that next amendment for the same one.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 11, approval of an amendment increasing funding and extending the duration of a personal services contract with MTR Western LLC for the operation of the last mile shuttle services. The amendment value is $1,013,864.14. for 1 year. Contract value is increased to $1,956,368.14 for 3 years. Funding is through statewide transportation improvement funds. No county general funds are involved.
Okay, so similar to our very first one that we heard about, this is for the last mile shuttle operations. And it's really to reduce fragmentation between TriMet and the communities outside its service area. In this amendment, we negotiated new rates and other terms, increasing the funding and the duration of the agreement. And this will deliver approximately 19,948 rides.
Commissioner Scholl?
How was the last mile, how are the buses working out? You know, we started that last year, I think. Wasn't it last year? Springtime last year?
Couple years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago. Time flies, doesn't it? But are you finding that the number of the buses you have is working out okay?
Good morning again, Teresa Christopherson with Social Services Division. We're seeing some great increases in ridership on the last mile shuttles. During the first year of operation, we had about 11,000 rides. This year, we're on track to hit 19,000, and we're seeing those numbers going up and up. The Clackamas Industrial Shuttle is particularly well used. It has a very solid base of ridership. The Oregon City was a little bit slower to get started, but we're making some adjustments to the routes, and I think we're starting to better meet the local needs. So these programs are doing very, very well.
And are you still providing to-the-door service for some of those people who are in need?
Yes,
can't
we
get
have
around
what
very
we
well?
call route deviations. So if someone needs door-to-door service, they need somebody to pick them up. It's actually at their driveway. It's more of a driveway service.
yeah.
We are able to do that.
Okay. And do you have a lot of people taking advantage of that?
Not a huge number of people because we have a lot of stops going through different districts, on residential streets and things like that are away from kind of the main streets. So it makes it really accessible for folks, but we do have people who do take advantage of those route
Yeah,
deviations.
well, I'm glad to hear the program is working out well. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 12, approval to apply for grant funds from Kaiser Permanente to establish a medical respite program. Total grant value is up to $250,000 for 2 years. Funding is through Kaiser Permanente. No county general funds are involved.
So medical respite care is short-term and long-term care for homeless people who are too sick or weak to get better in the streets or in a shelter, but not sick enough necessarily to go to the hospital. So this is basically, Kaiser Permanente recognizes that there is an issue with this, and this will help us to, basically they're going to fund a cohort. We'll have one position funded to help develop strategies and a program for providing medical respite, and this would also include helping folks who are released from the hospital into homelessness so that they are provided services as well. So very much needed program in our community.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections. Thank you, Kaiser.
Thank you, Denise. All right, all of these consent agenda items will go to this Thursday's business meeting, except for Transportation and Development Item 2, that City of Oregon City road transfer. We're pulling that, but everything else will be on this Thursday's business meeting. All right, back to the issues list. There's no legislative update today. There was an email that was sent to you by staff. Next, Advisory Board and Commissions. Tony, go ahead.
Tourism and Development Council, staffed by Tourism, currently has 3 openings on their commission due to term expirations. 9 members are allowed with 2 terms. Through a recruitment process, 2 applications were received and are recommended for appointment. Recommendation is Luke Spencer to a 2nd term, Tess Koch to a 1st term.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the recommendations.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has moved to approve the Tourism Development Council appointees Luke Spencer and Tess Koch for their terms, and Commissioner West has seconded that motion. Any further discussions? Seeing none. Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Up next.
Next is proposed board recess dates for 2023-2024. Commissioners, during my 6-month performance review check-in in January, you gave me an assignment, come up with proposed recess dates for the board for the entire year. So I asked our amazing staff to work with me on a proposal, which they did, and Tony Mayernick, our clerk, led this effort. So there's a memo in your packet with a proposal for you today, Commissioners, for your review and consideration. Go ahead, Tony.
Commissioners, the proposed dates for recesses include the week of the week of July 3rd, the weeks of August 21st and August 28th, as well as the Tuesday following Labor Day, the week of November 13th, the weeks of December 18th, December 25th, and the Tuesday, January 2nd, the week of February 19th, and March 25th. The proposal is to align with historical practice and to take advantage of some other scheduling things that have occurred on an ad hoc but consistent basis over the last few years. Happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Thank you, Tony. Commissioner West.
Two initial questions is, thank you for doing this. On November the 23rd, and I guess maybe this is because I have a child in school, I wonder if the board would consider adding past the 16th and taking the 20th, 21st, and 22nd off, because we're already gone that Thursday for Thanksgiving, and a lot of people are already dealing with a bunch of holiday family stuff that entire week. I don't think really anybody does anything that week anyways, so I'd like to propose to see if the board is open to that. And then my question about the March one, is that our current school district spring break? That's when it is?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And we know that is what it is next year too. It's always that same week here? Okay.
Correct, yes.
That was my only two comments.
All right, Gary, you have your light on?
I can answer the November question. November is a very unique month here at Clackamas County because there's also two holidays that month, which are not reflected on your list. November 9th is Veterans Day, and so normally you would move your business meeting the day before. For the Thanksgiving week, November 23rd is Thanksgiving. You move your business meeting the day before in the past. The week of November 13th is actually the Association of Oregon Counties Conference. So while you would have a recess here, you would all be working in Eugene, should you choose to go to that conference. So all to say, you could take as much or little time as you want that month, but November is a tough month anyway because of all the holidays.
And that would, if we did that, Commissioners, it would only leave us 3 weeks to the end of the year to complete a lot of business. I'm going to recommend that we don't take that. If any commissioner feels the need to take that off, I think it's an individual decision. Gary, is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally fine. I'm fine, just suggestion, yeah.
Yeah, so we really get loaded up sometimes in
Okay.
November, despite our efforts to say, okay, let's get all this stuff like in September and October. It's just the nature of the beast.
Totally.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, do we need,
I would just say that the list you read, it seems like similar to what we've done in previous years, and you get the 2 weeks at the end of August and then 2 weeks at the end of December, right?
Yes, Commissioner. It is consistent with the board's schedule over the last few years and adding some weeks that the board has not scheduled to take off, so to speak, but have resulted in recesses because of other scheduling commitments all coming into alignment.
do we need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the recess list as read by Tony.
Well, second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved we approve the recess proposal, and it has been seconded by Commissioner West. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. We appreciate that. All right, next, review of your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, April 20th, 2023. It's a 10 a.m. business meeting. You'll have a update from Clackamas County Clerk Catherine McMullen, who'll give you a quick update on the upcoming May election. You'll have a previously approved land use item, which is zone change application. I don't remember what this is for. And all the long consent agenda items you approved today except for the DTD one. If you have any question on any item, please let me know prior to Thursday, and staff is happy to answer it for you. The final item today, Chair, is Commissioner Communications.
Commissioner Communication, Commissioner Savas, you're up first.
Okay, well, the conversation on tolling continues. We'll be talking about that tomorrow when we see our submission to the Federal Highway Authority and also to ODOT. And I also want to make sure, just if anyone's listening, that we make sure we copy Metro in their capacity as the MPO, which is a federal designation. I just want to make sure that technicality is followed through. Maybe that's already in the works, but I came across some information yesterday that suggested we ought to be doing that. Last Wednesday, we talked about the letter. Wednesday evening, Commissioner Schrader attended a event in which Representative Susan McLean spoke virtually, and the Portland Tribune reported the next day that McLean said that all the tolling bills were dead, that they weren't going to have a hearing on tolling. So that was Thursday, and then Friday morning, I attended a ODOT presentation at Charbonneau. There were easily 320, some people said 360 people there. ODOT did a presentation. It was a 1-hour event, and they cut the line off at that one point in time, but everyone who spoke during that event was in opposition. And also at the panel, not was ODOT, but also Senator Aaron Woods was present, and some of the staff from Representative Courtney's, or is it
Courtney Neron.
Courtney Neron. That's I'm sorry. I knew I was mispronouncing, or yeah, I got her name. So, and there was mention of his Senator Woods' bill, SB 771, that it would have been an exemption for Charbonneau residents to have a free pass over the bridge without being financially penalized for doing their normal scope of business. Interestingly enough, what it wasn't shared there was that, again, in line with the Business Tribune, the Portland Tribune, that Representative McLean declared all the bills were dead. That was not mentioned Friday morning, so I don't know if it didn't get back to them, but we're hoping that there is our legislators actually do their work, and it just seems to be a process issue in which we trust that bills that maybe don't have support won't be heard for a hearing. I'm not a state legislator or have been. Chair Smith has been. I was under the presumption that if there's broad support for a bill, that it's heard. If there's not, it's dropped. Maybe there's different criteria, but it just seems to me that there is somewhat of a process, either a misunderstanding on my part or an injustice, or maybe both. But I am really somewhat surprised with everyone clamoring for discussion and a hearing on a number of the tolling bills, and with all the huge opposition. I think the weakest poll I saw yet on tolling was 90% opposition. That's the weakest poll I've seen, and yet there's not a hearing on this. I think, again, to me a process. I don't feel like this is the Oregon that I knew, where public process and discussion and open formats were ever present and opportunities. The presentation by ODOT, once again, there was new information there that I had not heard before, and that seems to be the theme for since 2017, when HB 2017 passed. It's been a moving target. Is it like bait and switch? We were talking about just tolling short sections for certain purposes, and now it just keeps growing and expanding and expanding. And we'll talk about it tomorrow, but the environmental analysis ODOT did not give us clear financial clarity as to what those impacts were to families and businesses. So hearing a lot, and I'll just say we had a nice event. We did it all, we all attended an event here on Saturday evening at the Canby Center, not the Canby Adult Center that we just approved some funding for, but the Canby Center. Great bunch of people there doing some great work. I was really pleased to meet a lot of people there and hear about all the good work they're doing, and have a good opportunity to break bread with some of those folks. It was a nice event.
It was a great event. Thank you for
Yep.
mentioning that.
And lastly, yesterday, we all attended at the Grand Ronde, we attended our annual visit. We rotate venues, and I want to thank them for their hospitality and their tour and great relationships. And I'm actually getting some more data, by the way, also on their homeless challenges that they have, which I'm not sure there are any, and also how they work with children and families, how they manage that, whether it's immediate. I know there was discussion yesterday about some more of the substance abuse issues, but we didn't cover all the other populations that don't have that, but have other needs. So that's what I have for today, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner West.
Thank you. I appreciate Commissioner Savis's availability to go to those very important meetings and being aware of them even when the county commissioners weren't invited or told about it. But knowing what's going on in the region as major players on this topic and on this issue as we take action, I really am glad to be serving the board that's trying to find a way to fight this. I think we need to start talking about a bigger question as we approach this subject is, how strong are we willing to go to the mat against this issue? Are we willing to fight ODOT to the point where we are jeopardizing that third lane? Is that a bigger question that we need to talk about? I'll speak for myself. I will fight tolling with every inch of my capacity as a human being, as somebody that drives those roads, as a Clackamas County resident, and I won't have that third lane being leveraged against me to fight horrible policies that hurt working families. And so if that means we don't get a third lane, I don't care. I will fight this. If that means I am on a ramp with a protesting sign, if that means that I have to get super creative to bring more attention to this, I think that this is the largest threat that this county has faced in a generation. And I think we are trying to be aggressive and we are doing great things and we have a good plan moving forward and resources going to that. But I think it's going to come down where the rubber meets the road and how much are we willing to take off the gloves? Because we don't have a voice and we've been told to shut up and just fall in line and being railroaded and new information coming out, not allowing the public to speak to this is disrespectful to 430,000 plus residents in Clackamas County. I would like an answer to why a number of the people in the Clackamas County caucus voted for House Bill 3055 and some of them for Senate Bill 217 or House Bill 217. I want to know what the Senate President's plan is, Rob Wagner, to address this issue also, to work with his constituents and Senator Wagner in Lake Oswego and Senator Meeks. It sounds like some of them may have had a change of heart in which they didn't vote for some of those bills, but they did. So I like to see them maybe have the same urgency that we do to make sure that the public in Clackamas County can be heard in their state capital on this pressing issue that impacts the entire region. I agree that this is not the Oregon that my forefathers were, that valued process, public hearings, and openness and transparency, and that's not happening, and we don't want to have ODOT scheme rammed down our throats. So, but I think that's a big question that we have to consider, colleagues. What are we willing to sacrifice to fight this? Because we're taking on a massive agency and a big legislature that doesn't seem to have the same urgency that we do. That's my question to this board. We don't have, that's rhetorical today, but I think we should answer that question. I had the pleasure to also, you spoke to this, Commissioner Savis. I'm wearing today my friendship beaded necklace that was given to me by the Grand Ronde. And it had a great time. And their health center is really amazing, what they've been able to build, the culture and how they weave that so intricately within the fabric of everything they do, the mindfulness of which they do that, some of the ability to be nimble and responsive to the population because they're the closest and most they're right there and a part of it, right? There's not like a larger necessarily bureaucracy that, I'm sure there's some of that, but they tend to be a much more localized approach to the community's needs. And it was a real honor to, as a new commissioner, to be a part of that. I look forward to hosting them, Gary and board, when they come here. I hope that we feed them and care for them in the same way that they did for us, because I really appreciate the friendship with the tribe. I really do, and that was really the vibe. So, and then also the Dignity, the Design with Dignity event that we went to. It's really exciting to see what they're doing in Canby and the approach that they're taking. So I know we'll have more to say later this week, but that's all I have today.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, thank you. Again, I too would like to thank the Council of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde for a wonderful tour of the facilities yesterday and the great hospitality. For people who don't know it, that Grand Ronde has taken on a huge project at the Willamette Falls. They call it the Tumwater Project now. You might have heard of it before as the Blue Heron Project. But if people can help with that, go to the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde website, read about the project, and help them out. Also, the Canby Center event last Saturday. Thank you, Ray Keene, and your staff for a great evening. The CanbyCenter.org, they're taking donations to try to get over the top. The money they need to build their new building. They need your help. One more thing, too, on tolling. ODOT has their public comment window open through the 21st of April to talk about their environmental analysis of I-205. I encourage everybody in the county who has not weighed in on that, let ODOT know how you feel about tolling. If tolling happens, the way I see it, and based on some of the numbers we've been given, tolling could, for some people in this county, become your third highest tax after federal and state tax. So please get involved, fight tolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. I just need to reiterate, we all attended these events on Saturday night at the Canby Center, a wonderful dinner, and we attended the Grand Ronde for a very long tour of the programs they're doing. And I had a wonderful conversation with John George, one of their tribal leaders, an elected tribal leader, and they too experience the same type of government, should I say, give and take, and implementing their programs as we do. And when he presented us with the beads, I had worn 2 different strands of beads that I received over time. And he says to me, I want to thank you for wearing the previous beads, because when you wear the previous beads, it's my thoughts of friendship back to them before I received that. So it was a note to self, folks, next time that we have a wonderful event with them, wear all your beads. Yeah. And I have several now, and they're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Yes, tolling is a big, fat problem. Tomorrow we will be having a policy session on a very long document that we plan to present to ODOT. I'm not going to say a whole lot much more on that, but we are taking this seriously. And as a county government, we are doing what we can to address the issues of tolling economically and environmentally, and causing all the problems that it's going to cause. We're trying to address those. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.